Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today we're taking a close look at Adagio Medical Holdings, ticker ADGM.
Right, and you shared several pieces on them. It definitely paints a picture of a company at, well, potentially a really pivotal moment.
Seems like it. We've got info from recent FDA news all the way to a pretty detailed due diligence report. Financials, market position, the whole outlook.
A lot to unpack there.
Exactly. So our mission today is to try and cut through some of that detail, understand what's really significant for listeners trying to get knowledgeable quickly, but, thoroughly without feeling totally overwhelmed.
Makes sense. We should probably explore their tech, what they've achieved recently, the potential risks too, and maybe where they could be headed.
Okay, let's start with that FDA news then. On April 17th, 2025, Adagio announced they got this FDA breakthrough device designation for their VCLAS cryoablation system. What does that actually mean for them?
Well, this designation, it's pretty significant. The FDA gives it to devices that show potential for a real breakthrough for serious conditions.
That's it.
And for Adagio, it's specifically for their VCLAS system. That's the one targeting a pretty tough heart condition. Drug refractory, recurrent, sustained, monomorphic ventricular tachycardia. Basically a specific type of dangerous heart rhythm in patients with structural heart disease.
Right, VT and structurally damaged hearts.
And what's interesting, it's not just, a pat on the back. It actually can accelerate the whole regulatory pathway.
So not just bureaucratic paper shuffling then. It genuinely suggests the FDA sees something promising here.
I think that's fair to say. It suggests the FDA believes this technology could potentially address a really significant unmet medical need. It validates their approach in the eyes of regulators, which is a big deal.
And how might that impact their actual journey to market? Does this mean we could see the technology available sooner?
It very well could. The whole point of the Breakthrough Device Program is to allow for more frequent interaction with the FDA during development and review.
Okay.
So, yeah, that can potentially lead to a more efficient, maybe faster path to market compared to the standard process.
Okay, let's shift to the technology itself then. What makes it unique? Adagio's core platform is this ultra-low temperature cryoablation, ULTC. They've got a few products, but VCLAS is the one for ventricular tachycardia. How significant is cryoablation here compared to, say, radiofrequency ablation that the big guys use?
That's a really crucial question. The sources suggest that this ultra-low temperature cryoablation might offer safer, or maybe more effective, treatment specifically for what's called scar-mediated ventricular tachycardia.
Scar-mediated VT.
Okay. Which is often really challenging to treat well with existing methods. You mentioned the competitors, Medtronic, Biosense Webster. They mostly rely on radiofrequency ablation, which uses heat.
Right.
Adagio's approach uses extreme cold, freezing the tissue. This might create more precise, more permanent lesions, especially in that complex scar tissue that causes VT. Think of it like very carefully freezing and disabling the faulty electrical circuits in the heart.
So it's not just a minor variation. This ultra-low temp could offer a genuine advantage for these particular patients.
That's the potential, yes. The lower temperatures might lead to more durable results, better long-term outcomes, possibly fewer complications. That's the hope.
Moving along, what about their clinical trial progress? They're enrolling for the Fulcrum VT IDENIS study. Sounds critical for getting that FDA pre-market approval. How's that going?
Well, the latest update indicates they've enrolled over 40% of their target. That target is 206 patients.
Okay, over 40%.
And what seems notable is that this enrollment progress is apparently ahead of schedule.
Ahead of schedule. That sounds like a positive signal, suggesting maybe good execution or high interest.
It certainly suggests things are moving well on that front. Could be strong interest from clinical sites, maybe patients too.
Huh.
This Fulcrum VT study, it's an IDE study, investigational device exemption,
Right.
meaning they needed special FDA permission to even run this trial in humans to gather the safety and efficacy data they need for approval.
So completion and results from this trial are major upcoming catalysts then.
Absolutely. Positive results would significantly de-risk their path to FDA approval. It's what everyone's watching.
Okay, let's pivot to the financials. They're still developmental stage, clearly, but the sources mention revenue saw some growth in 2024. What's the overall financial picture look like?
So for the full year 2024, revenue came in at about $0.6 million, which, yes, is double the $0.3 million from 2023.
Small numbers, but growing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Q4 2024 also showed a pretty decent jump, 76% year over year. The sources say this growth came from introducing the VCLAS catheter in Europe.
Okay, so some initial traction overseas, but profitability is still a ways off, I assume.
Oh, definitely. They're not profitable. In Q4 2024 alone, they reported a net loss of $57.4 million.
Wow, okay.
And their EPS, earnings per share, trailing 12 months, it's deeply negative, minus $11.22.
Which isn't totally unexpected for an early-stage medtech burning cash on R&D and trials.
No, it's quite typical. They're investing heavily in getting this technology proven and approved.
What about their balance sheet? Debt, cash on hand.
The debt-to-equity ratio is around 80.7%. Indicates, moderate leverage. They've got about $20.6 million in cash equivalents.
Okay, $20.6 million. How long does that last them?
Well, that's the key question. Based on their current free cash flow burn rate, the sources suggest their cash runway is less than 1 year.
Less than a year. That definitely highlights the importance of, well, everything going right.
It really does. It underscores how critical successful trial outcomes are, not just for regulatory approval, but potentially for securing future funding if they need it. That Fulcrum VT trial success becomes almost existential.
Makes sense. So given all that, what's the general market sentiment? How are investors or analysts looking at Adagio right now?
Well, that FDA breakthrough designation likely gave investor confidence a bit of a lift.
You'd think so.
But specific analyst ratings seem limited. That's probably because of their small market cap, around $14 million currently.
Tiny.
Yeah. Social media chatter seems to be cautiously optimistic, but heavily focused on waiting for those Fulcrum VT trial results.
Is the lack of analyst coverage just because they're small, or could it signal some skepticism too?
It's hard to say definitively. Often, smaller companies just fly under the radar of analysts simply due to resource constraints. Doesn't necessarily mean skepticism, maybe more of a wait and see until there's more concrete clinical data.
And they are in a tough neighborhood, competitively speaking. Going up against giants like Medtronic and Biosense Webster, what's their edge beyond the tech itself?
It's a very competitive market, no doubt. As we discussed, their main competitive advantage is that novel ultra-low temp cryoablation approach, specifically targeting VT.
Right.
If they can really prove superior efficacy or significant safety benefits in specific patient groups, they could potentially carve out a meaningful share of that market.
Okay, let's crystallize the risks and opportunities. What are the main potential pitfalls here?
On the risk side, number one is regulatory approval. It's never a guarantee, even with breakthrough status.
Sure.
Number two, unfavorable clinical trial results from Fulcrum VT would be a major blow. Huge impact on valuation and future prospects.
Obviously.
Then there's the financial picture, negative earnings, that limited cash runway we talked about, plus ongoing competitive pressure. And it's worth noting, they did report a large impairment charge recently, about $49 million, which might signal some past challenges or write-downs.
Okay, quite a few risks. And on the flip side, the potential big wins.
The biggest win, by far, would be successful completion of Fulcrum VT and subsequent FDA approval. That would be truly transformative.
Opens up the U.S. market.
Exactly. Access to a significant market for VT treatment. And from there, expansion into other geographic markets beyond Europe becomes a real possibility.
Any longer-term potential?
Looking further out, there's potential for their specific approach, purely endocardial ablation for scar-mediated VT, to maybe become a broader standard if it really proves effective. That represents a very substantial long-term opportunity.
So pulling all this together, what does it boil down to for someone listening trying to get a handle on Adagio Medical?
I think it's clearly a high-risk, high-reward situation. No doubt about it. That FDA breakthrough designation is a major positive, a strong validation, and it helps their path to the U.S. market. But you absolutely have to remember, they're still developmental stage, they face significant financial challenges, and so much hinges on those clinical trial results turning out positive.
So for listeners interested in medtech, particularly cardiac arrhythmia treatments.
For those listeners, Adagio is definitely a company to watch closely. Keep a very close eye on the progress and, crucially, the results of that Fulcrum VT study. That's going to be the key determinant of their future.
Okay. So we've definitely unpacked quite a bit around Adagio Medical today, the FDA news, the financials, the market landscape. It's quite a compelling story, isn't it? Innovation, but with clear risks and also significant potential.
Absolutely. And the key takeaway really circles back to that Fulcrum VT trial. The potential of their ultra-low temperature cryoablation technology to meet a critical need in VT treatment is there, but it needs to be proven. Watching their progress with the FDA and awaiting those study results is paramount.
What really stands out to you most about their situation right now? And maybe thinking more broadly, what further questions does this raise for you, perhaps about investing in these kinds of developmental stage companies? Something for our listeners to think about, too.
Hmm. Good questions.
We definitely encourage everyone listening to do their own further exploration. Look at SEC filings, check financial news platforms, and if you found this discussion insightful, please do subscribe, like the show, and leave a comment. Let us know what other topics you'd like us to explore next time.